Guys are staying, or as the Bible calls it, the lost city of David. What do I mean by the lost? Because if I were a tour guide taking you guys around 300 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and I asked you, hey guys, where is Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem of King David, the Jerusalem of Eicha, of Jeremiah the prophet, the Jerusalem of Isaiah, of the Bible? Where would you have to point? You would point up there to the old city of Jerusalem, right? Up there. Why? Because that's all people knew. All of this was covered by dust and ashes, covered underground. It just looked like a bunch of fields. Okay, what happened? Years and years of warfare here. From the time of the Babylonians to the Romans, and then to the Christians and to the Muslims. War after war after war after war. Now, as we'll learn about later, 2,700 years ago, the city of David, the Jerusalem of today, shifted up to the old city. It was down here and up there. It expanded, okay? And eventually, that kind of became the Jerusalem that everyone knew. And this was totally forgotten. Nobody knew where the original city of David was. But in the 19th century, many European countries are looking for gold. They want to find archaeological remnants which prove the Bible, and many countries are sending in different archaeological people to find this lost stuff and put it in their museums. One of those countries is England. England's Queen Victoria sends in a man named Charles Warren. We'll talk more about this guy, sent by the Palestine Exploration Fund to find the lost city of David. So he starts looking up there in Mount Zion, okay, where the Kever David, the tomb of David, is traditionally believed to be, and he doesn't find it. He starts digging by the Temple Mount, by the Noble Sanctuary. He thinks maybe I'll find the lost Ark. You think the Muslims up there are going to let this Christian dude just start digging by the Noble Sanctuary? Not so much. They don't let him get close. So what's the closest he can dig to the actual Temple Mount? The Ophel, a little yard behind us, okay, the external area of the old city, and there he finds 4,000-year-old walls, 4,000-year-old remnants. And he's thinking to himself, if that's the ancient city, then why are the ancient remnants here? And then he starts thinking to himself, what do you need in order to have an ancient city? What's the most predominant, the most basic thing you need to have in order to have a city? You need
water.
Excellent. Water. On a day like today, you understand, right? You need a natural source of water. And where do they find the source of water? Not up there, not in the old city, but rather
here,
down here, where we're going to be going today, to the Gihon spring, a natural spring of water. It means to burst out. Okay? Putting these pieces of the puzzle, he postulates that the original city of David actually is here. Since then, there have been literally dozens of archaeological expeditions. This is probably the most digged place in the world, us and the pyramids. More and more proving that this is the original city of David, and even more importantly, showing a connection and veracity between the Bible, the Torah, Tanakh, and yeah. Well, if you want downstairs, there's a place to fill up your water, and when we go down, I'll give everyone some time to fill up the water also in a few minutes. Okay? You can go now, whatever you want. In any case, that is how we discovered this city of David, and like I said, it is still the most dug place, or one of the most dug places in the world. And I'm going to give you guys a few examples of places where the Bible and archaeology meet on today's little adventure. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay.
So when they built those walls, they didn't know to include this.
Exactly.
area?
Those walls were built by the Turks about 500 years ago. Suleiman the Magnificent. Okay, and they didn't know exactly. They excluded the original city of David all the way down the hill. It was covered up by so much ashes and dirt, and it was totally unknown until Charles Warren about 150 years ago. Unbelievable.
Times of the second base of Mikdash was also down here, the city, or is it?
Excellent. In the times of the second temple, that's 2,000 years ago. Okay, so then there was a joint city. The lower city was mostly the poor people. Okay? And the higher city was mostly the richer people, the Kohanim, the priests, who were up there by the burnt house and Shivat HaKotel and all the ice cream places. They could afford the ice cream down there, up there, you know? But we're in the lower city, and on the other tour in the Givati archaeological expeditions, we found tons of remnants from the Second Temple period, where it still was down here. Okay? Now, part 2. Let's start with the hero of our tour. Who is this city named after? King David. That's why the Bible calls it the city of David. Now, what makes David so connected to Jerusalem? Why is he associated with Jerusalem?
He's the king.
He's the king. Not only is he the king, but he's the king who built and captured. He conquered. He captured. Whatever PC word you want to use. He's the guy that the book of Kings explains. The first act of King David is to move his kingdom from Hebron, right, where we were the other day, where he reigned 7 years. And the Bible does not explain why, but he's burning to build and to capture and to establish his capital here in Jerusalem. And I ask you guys, you seem very wise, why? You see, the Bible, the Tanakh, does not tell us why it was burning so strong in King David to rebuild Jerusalem. After all, for 200 years before him, at least 200 years, Joshua and all the Shoftim, all the leaders were not able to capture Jerusalem. This remained in Jebusite hands. You're going to see 4,000-year-old walls built by the Canaanites, the Jebusites, the 7 nations, and no one was able to capture Jerusalem. But King David says we must capture Jerusalem. Why? Why was it so important for King David? Any suggestions, guys?
It says in Shmuel.
What does it say?
He wanted to build Beis Hamikdash.
Oh, so we have a wise young man who says that we see later that King David builds the temple. It must be, as David explains, Shivti b'beit Hashem kol yimei chayai, as he writes in Psalms, I want to dwell in the house of God. And he believed, he had somehow some sort of tradition that the ark, the temple, can't be in Shiloh and Shiloh. It can't be wandering around in Nov. But he somehow knew that the temple must ultimately be in Jerusalem. Mind you, it never says that explicitly in the Bible. It doesn't say the temple must be in Jerusalem, but somehow our good friend is theorizing David knew that the temple has to be in Jerusalem and therefore needs to recapture Jerusalem. That's a great theory. Yeah, I like
It
it.
says, "B'mokoim asher yibchar Hashem," and you need a nevuah to say what Hashem has chosen, and he had a nevuah.
Oh, so we have another excellent. Actually, in these weeks, we're reading the book of Deuteronomy, and in that Dvarim, it says dozens of times. Moses explains that you need to build the temple in the place which God chooses, the makom, the place which God chooses. Now, it doesn't reveal to us what this place is. How many times does it say the word Jerusalem in the Bible, in the 5 books of Moses? Who knows? 0. Not once. So it doesn't explicitly ever say it. Maimonides has a fascinating theory as to why it never actually says that. But my good friend here is giving one of the Talmudical explanations that King David had a tradition, that it came through a prophecy, and he received the prophecy that ultimately the temple needs to be here in Jerusalem, and perhaps that's why he had to capture Jerusalem. Excellent. Are there any other theories as to what was burning so strong within King David about Jerusalem specifically?
המקום אשר אילד.
שהמקום אשר יבחר השם.
No, it's where Yaakov is being.
Oh, excellent. So the second theory, I'm going to give 3 theories, and I'm going to move on, is history. King David knew his history. He knew that this was the place which, according to ancient tradition, the world was created, according to Zohar, Parshat Vayechi, the foundation stone on Mount Moriah. The world was created in this holy place on that mountain called Mount Moriah. He knew that the sacrifices of Cain and Abel, of Adam, were given on that mountain, Mount Moriah. He knew that Jacob, on that lonely night, in that makom, in that spot, although the Bible says it happened in Beit El, but spiritually, the rabbis explain his neshama, his soul, was really in the makom, the same place here in Jerusalem. And he knew that the binding of Yitzchak, Akedat Yitzchak, that wild and crazy story, where did that happen? Here in Jerusalem. One more thing, Malchi Tzedek, king of Shalem, has a l'chaim, brings out some wine and some bread. And Shalem, where did he have that l'chaim? In the War of the 4 Kings of the 5 Kings with Abraham, he had it in Jerusalem. None of these things are explicitly said, but all of them are alluded to, and so perhaps because of the holy history of Jerusalem, it was burning within King David to capture Jerusalem. One last theory, and we'll move on. Take a look at my little map here. You will see that Jerusalem is right in the middle between the tribe of Benjamin and Judah. Okay? Now, we know there is tribal divisions all over the place. Read the book of King Saul, and from Benjamin, and King David. He was the leader of Judah. So if he establishes his tribe in Hebron, what might some people think? Who does he most care about? The Judites, the Jews. But he doesn't want to be the king of the Jews. He wants to be the king of everyone. The Israel Jews, the Judah Israelites, everyone. You get what I'm saying? And so perhaps there'll be another reason if he makes a no man's land, a Washington, D.C., David City, right in between Benjamin and Judah. Everyone can feel connected to Jerusalem. And so the destiny, remember this for our entire tour, the mission of Jerusalem is to unite. Unite all of the Jews together, and ultimately to unite the whole world together, be a place connecting to God and connecting to one another. Okay, that's enough history for now. And now I want us to go into the beautiful fog, and we're going to actually try to see a little bit, to the best of our ability, of where we're standing, and then we're going to jump into the archaeological remnants. Yalla, come with me, please.